Hello friends. In this session we will talk about the history of blockchains. Now, one of the things that we have to ask ourselves before we get into this session is, why do we have to learn about the history, specifically of blockchains and in general of any technology? The reason for that is some of the relevance of the technology is built up over what happened in the past before that technology was conceptualized. This is specifically relevant for blockchains because blockchains happened at a time of financial crisis, specifically the financial crisis of 2008-2009, when stock markets were crashing and we needed to develop a trust in the financial systems of the world. So before talking a bit more about that, let us look at some of the timelines and what happened in blockchain technology as it evolved from a concept to a strong proposition. One of the things that we have to understand about blockchains is that they are not an innovation. What they are is an evolution. What exactly has happened before blockchains has all led up to the development of the technology as it exists today. Before delving further into what that means, I want to talk about a statement that was made by Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto. Before talking about the statement, just to introduce Mr. Satoshi, he was the person who conceptualized bitcoins. Bitcoins, which I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with, is a very popular blockchain technology. What Mr. Satoshi said was the root problem of conventional financial systems was the requirement of trust. What that means is that for the whole financial system to work, there has to be a central authority, which is the central bank, and it has to be trusted by everyone. And the issue with all of that is that it's that central bank or that central authority that has always proven that it has breached that trust. With that statement in mind, we form the foundation of what we call decentralized finance, or the concept of blockchains in decentralization. So before we delve any further into the financial world of how different central systems work together, let's take a look at some of the technologies that were there before blockchains that were ultimately relevant for the concept of a chain of blocks or trusted computing. A project that was conceptualized by two engineers in 1991 called the timestamping of digital documents was one of the core foundational projects that helped conceptualize blockchains. Another project later in 1998 called B-Money was also the reference base for the thought behind bitcoins as proposed by Mr. Satoshi. In 2008, after looking at all of the aftermath of the financial meltdown, the Bitcoin Whitepaper was released. And 2008 was a very important year for blockchain technologies. This white paper formed the basis of the peer-to-peer cash system called Bitcoins as we know it today. Following Bitcoins, there were a number of different innovations that built up on the core foundation, the first of which was the creation of a consortium called R3 in 2014. R3 was a group of big players in different technology industries and the financial world to take advantage of the blockchain proposition in specific use cases. Followed by the creation of R3, 2015 saw the creation of projects like Ethereum and Hyperledger under the Linux Foundation that brought about the concept of smart contracts. After Bitcoins, smart contracts were the next most important milestone in the journey of blockchains. After smart contracts became popular, there were a number of innovations like stable coins, ICOs, decentralized finance, and some of the recent ones around IoTs and how blockchains can work with artificial intelligence that have shaped up the future of blockchains and also how blockchains are conceived today. So with that timeline in mind, let's look at some of these phases in detail. So the first phase or the first timeline milestone that I want to talk about is document timestamping. This project was created by two engineers from a company called Belcore Communications, and it proposed a concept called hash functions and combined them with digital signatures to create a stack of timestamped documents in a scheme very similar to how blockchains work today. Just the way we look at chain of blocks today, the project then conceptualized a chain of documents and ensured that each document had a hash of the previous block, ensuring immutability of the document at a certain timestamp. This project was revolutionary, but it did not garner the attention that it deserved, and its patent expired a couple of years after the project was released. But one of the things that needs to be understood is that the foundation of Bitcoin and blockchain technology was set by the concept of digital hashes and digital signatures, very similar to how they were used in this document timestamping project. Next thing that was of import after some of these projects were conceptualized was the Bitcoin blockchain proposal. This proposal was explained in a white paper by Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto. This was published late in October 2008. It had references to all of the projects that were discussed prior to this proposal. One of them was the document timestamping project, the other one was the B-Money. But one of the most innovative solutions or propositions of the Bitcoin blockchain was proof of work. Proof of work was also not really innovative. It was in some form used in a currency called Hashcash prior to Bitcoins. But it was not used in the way Bitcoins proposed. The white paper defined transactions and incentives based on proof of work and combined them in a very innovative way to create a distributed cash system. This white paper is the single most important milestone in the journey of blockchains. Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the proponent of this white paper, he was a part of an open source group that was discussing this white paper and all of the different concepts that were discussed in it. And then he went on to build Bitcoin Core. which was the reference implementation of this white paper. And in 2009, January of 2009, the first Bitcoin transaction was sent by him as a part of that implementation. The title of the white paper is Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and I would encourage every one of you to have a read through that document, especially the non-technical parts that talk about the financial crisis. By the end of this course, you will be able to understand most of that document. So, in early 2009, the first Bitcoin reference implementation software was released. It was created by Mr. Satoshi himself. The Genesis block, or the first block, was created by him on January the 3rd, 2009. What's interesting to note was that this block had a very specific message, and that message was the headline of the newspaper that day. What's interesting to understand is that headline had something to do with the crash of the banks that was happening on that specific day. And it's interesting that that became the headline of the block of a blockchain which conceptualized creation of an alternate financial system. There's another kind of interesting thing about Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto. That is his identity. After the creation of the Bitcoin blockchain, Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto was active on the Bitcoin forums for a couple of months, after which he dropped off the message boards and also was not active in Bitcoin development. And from then on, nobody knows what his identity was or where he is. Even till today, his identity is a topic of speculations. After the advent of Bitcoins, the industry started taking notice of the proposition of Bitcoins and how it could be useful, and it started to understand the power of blockchain technology. With that in mind, a core group of technology companies and financial institutions came together and created an enterprise consortium called R3. The objective was R3 was to create a blockchain-like system that could be used in use cases specific to the financial world, like interbank settlement, like credit transfers, and peer-to-peer lending, and many such specific problems. R3 conceptualized a solution called Corda. Corda was a distributed ledger that was proposed by this alliance to address some of these specific problems that financial industry was facing around interbank settlement, money transfers, remittances, and a host of other use cases. R3 Corda still is a very, very powerful blockchain platform with very specific use cases and objectives that it addresses. So this was the year 2014, after which it was established that the industry or enterprise also understood the importance of blockchain technology. After 2014, many different important platforms or frameworks were conceptualized that were built on blockchain as a proposition. Hyperledger is one such platform. It was announced late in December of 2015 by Linux Foundation. Hyperledger is an umbrella project or a group project that houses a lot of tools and sub-projects that are specific to blockchains. Hyperledger was supported by entities from finance, banking, and technologies. Some of the important names are Consensus, which is a very big blockchain consulting firm, Wells Fargo, which is a big bank, Cisco, which is a networking enterprise, and a lot of others. Next year, IBM, which was a part of the Hyperledger group, incubated its project called Open Blockchain, which was a core contributor to the code that underlies Hyperledger. Some of the other companies like Digital Assets and Blockstream also contributed their code, and a project called Hyperledger Fabric was conceptualized. Fabric became the core blockchain framework in the Hyperledger umbrella of projects. It is still a very, very powerful and well-established blockchain platform all over the world. In 2015 also saw another important event. That was the launch of Ethereum. Much like Bitcoins, Ethereum was also developed by a developer who was very active in the Bitcoin community. It was proposed by Vitalik Buterin. Vitalik Buterin was a developer from the Bitcoin community who saw a lot of limitations in the Bitcoin proposition. Ethereum was a big event in the blockchain world because it created the concept of smart contracts. Ethereum also proposed the concept of Web 3.0, which was a big milestone in the internet world. Before Web 3.0, internet was supported by a technology that was under the guise of Web 2.0, which is a very, very limiting concept. Ethereum was laid as a foundation, and it created the roadmap for Ethereum releases and also proposed a lot of implementation and improvements over and top of the basic Ethereum proposition. The advent of Ethereum was as important in the Bitcoin journey as the first Bitcoin whitepaper release. That is because Ethereum was revolutionary in the sense that it proposed a concept that opened up blockchains to a lot of different use cases outside of the finance world. We will look at Ethereum and how different innovations happened over and above Ethereum that helped Ethereum blockchain grow to what it is today. Couple of things that have essentially shaped the Ethereum blockchain are very, very specific to what Ethereum offers as smart contracts. One of them is ICOs, or initial coin offerings. And this is again counted as a milestone in the blockchain world because ICOs made blockchains very, very useful to a very large entrepreneur community. Any entrepreneur who's looking to launch a project and is looking to raise money from their project had to go through a process called initial public offering that allowed him to offer shares as a part of his project company's ownership. What initial coin offering did was it enabled that process to be very, very simple. IPOs, or initial public offerings, were heavily regulated and they had a lot of eligibility conditions. ICOs offered a way in which one could raise money or crowdfund their projects very, very simply. This was primarily the reason why after the launch of ICOs in the year 2017, they got heavily regulated by the end of 2018. Another important journey in the Ethereum world, which is very relevant, is the DeFi revolution. DeFi, or decentralized finance, allowed one to create financial products or financial offerings on the Ethereum blockchain. These could be decentralized exchanges, yield farms, also lending markets which offered you peer-to-peer lending proposition, investment strategies, and borrowings. All of these different financial tools, which were essentially governed by legacy finance till 2019, could be done on the blockchain after 2019-20 time frame. Most of these were represented as protocols or set of rules that were defined as smart contracts that one could partake in as either an investor or a borrower or someone who's seeking to earn interest, or even just someone who's looking to lend money and earn an interest from another peer. By the end of October 2020, over $11 billion were deposited in various decentralized finance protocols, which is a very heavy growth, primarily in a period of 1 year. With this DeFi protocol and all of the products and tools that could be developed on DeFi, a lot of innovation and a lot of possibilities were made available to different kinds of financial entities that could shift their business from legacy financial systems to the blockchains. The DeFi revolution is the third important milestone in the journey of blockchains. With all of that we've learned about how blockchains have evolved and how different technologies and different milestones and different kinds of blockchain frameworks supported the growth and evolution of blockchains, we can envisage the future of blockchains. One of the things that is currently being researched is quantum ledgers, where you could support ledgers that could work with a very quick and fast processing. Blockchains work very well with Internet of Things, where a certain blockchain ledger could be hosted or could be interacting with an IoT device to create a trusted IoT interaction or a trusted execution environment for IoT devices. Another area of research is to introduce scalable blockchains. One of the problems in blockchains has been scalability. Today, with proof of work as one of the core consensus mechanisms, blockchains are not very efficient means of executing transactions. A lot of research and effort is going in addressing that problem and creating much scalable platforms that could help higher transaction throughputs. A lot of investments and a lot of other new platforms are shaping up the blockchain world, and with all of the attention that blockchains are getting from different and diverse verticals and domains, we see a very bright future for this technology as it tries to revolutionize our world. Thank you and happy learning.